Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today we're going to be adding another Hercules themed commercial lot to the save file. This is a wedding venue. Because I have been working in Tartosa and sort of planning for this world, it is the wedding stories world, so we have to have a wedding venue here. In fact, I'm going to spoil it now, this exact lot will have a replacement lot for a different film, and I'll also be creating a secondary option of a different wedding venue for this same exact lot. So we're going to be having two wedding venue options for this specific location. I'd like to have had more in the world, but we did not have enough room, to be honest. There were so many really great ideas, not just from Hercules, but from other movies in general for Tartosa that did have to get cut from the save file. So the best balance I could really think was to do a lot replacement. It'll be the only one for this world, but today's video will be focusing on the Hercules version. This is called It's Okay, You're in Love, and it is based on Meg's scene and the garden scene that sort of leads up to her big I won't say I'm in love number. There is so many really great little moments in that song where she completely explores this huge garden, and I was able to pull so many different ideas from that song and make little moments within this build that kind of represent the entire scene. It's a really, really cool build. I'm really excited about how it turned out, to be honest with you. When I was done with this, I was just like so happy. This is something that I have always dreamed of building, like doing a really pretty Greek garden is like a dream come true. And it's a dream come true because personally, like, I would say this is as close as it gets to like a personal dream wedding venue. If I could design one completely from scratch and I got to get married here, I would be so excited. This is like everything that I could ever possibly want it to be. It's full of greenery and statues and white marble, tons of fountains, so many different like really pretty elegant seating areas. There is room to get married indoors or outdoors, weather pending. So many places to put like buffet tables or seating, lots of different fountains you could position in front of. Even to just do like a wedding photo shoot on this lot would be amazing. I would be just as excited for that. So the way that this lot sort of works, and when I was designing it, what my thought process was, is that in the movie, this location, this garden, is very likely located behind Hercules' mansion. And so this lot is like very conveniently right next door to it, but obviously they're not attached. I did run into like a small space issue with this lot in particular. I knew that I had to put the big mansion on the big lot that we have in this world. I've also mentioned to you guys that I have a really big build that's coming later down the line. So the second big lot for this world, they were completely spoken for. And it worked out that there were two other lots sort of near the Hercules mansion, and this was one of them. So I did have to make it work, if you will, and make a lot of ideas fit into a much smaller space than I would have liked. In the scene, there is so many places that she goes. It is seemingly like an endless strolling sort of garden. There are many platforms and levels to it. There are hills. There's so much that you could do with it. So if I had like a full 64 by 64, I could have filled this place to the brim. Would I ever probably do like a giant wedding venue like that? Not very likely. The 64s are primarily going to be saved for like castles and things like that. So either way, it wouldn't have ended up being on such a big lot. But I'm just trying to say this isn't going to be like 100% recreation from the film, because I'm basically taking a bunch of ideas and a bunch of little scenes and moments that I really wanted to include and condensing them into the space that I have here. So even though it doesn't flow exactly correct according to the movie, all of the shout outs and the honorable mentions are there. One thing being this building in the back that I started with in the beginning of the video, that building doesn't really exist in the scene, but because I don't have Hercules mansion on the back end of it to put the garden attached to, it looked kind of funny. And then the other thought was that if I do a building up at the top of the garden, then I'll have the option to make an indoor wedding setting, which I do not do very often, and I haven't really properly set up a full wedding scene in The Sims 4 for my save file yet, with like an aisle, with lots of seating, with like all of the equipment and all of the pieces that you would need to like properly really do a full wedding. A lot of my wedding venues for the save so far have been outdoors with like a little bit of seating, but as far as worrying about like where's the buffet table gonna go, where is the bar gonna go, where can I put a cake, where can maybe the bridal party get ready, where can we have bathrooms, I haven't focused on that too much for the other wedding venues. That being, I did one Little Mermaid themed one that's very small for Sulani, and then I also have the Froggy Bayou, which was originally a Princess and the Frog themed garden, and then when we got the Wedding Stories pack later on, I changed it to a wedding venue because it was based off of their wedding scene in the movie Tiana and Naveen. I almost always forget this one, but I do have one more additionally. There is another one called Trollfully Wedded based on Frozen in Mount Komorebi, but the thing that all three of those lots share is that they are small outdoor spaces with limited seating. They do not have an aisle for any Sims to walk down, and there is most definitely not a building giving the option to do an indoor wedding or an area for Sims to get ready or like bathrooms and things like that. Believe it or not, the wedding lot type does not really require pretty much anything. The only thing I think you really truly need is an arch. Everything else is completely optional, so you can get away with doing this lot type for a lot of different scenes. The beginning part of the video is a lot of just me trying to figure out the shape of the exterior, where I'm going to place everything, making sure that I have room for all of those really key moments and the fountain and everything was going to fit. And then at the end of the video, I'll be going to the exterior, the interior of the building and decorating for that space for you to actually do the indoor wedding. While I personally would like to, if I was going to get married here, I would get married outside, probably in front of one of the fountains. And my thought was, if you were playing, it would be very easy for you as the player to just sort of move the wedding arch around and do it as you would like to make it fit whatever type of wedding you want for that day. But it is on the download primarily going to be set up for you to get married inside. So that area needed to be just as well decorated and pretty and matching everything else as well. Part of the footage that you're seeing today, I had to recreate twice. I had a horrible, I've never had this glitch happen before, but I basically did like the front half of the building, everything you saw with me creating the building and fitting all of the pedestals into place. I did have to tool some of them down into the wall and just like figuring out the platforming and the general shape of how everything was going to fit here. And then all of a sudden, of course I didn't save for like an hour, and I hit save and the game just endlessly loaded and didn't want to save, and I tried everything I possibly could to like force the game to save, but unfortunately it did not. So I actually had to go back and watch my original footage from like the first hour and recreate what I had already done so that I could start over. So there might be like a tile here and there that's not exactly the same. I think the building, the main building, ended up being like one tile smaller than the original build. Very frustrating when those sorts of things happen. It's been happening to me more and more recently, as I talked about in previous videos, since the For Rent patch. I usually have almost no issues with patches. In the past, that has been the case. I don't play with a lot of mods. The only mods I really use are when I am playtesting the save. I have to use things like MCC and UI cheats, and I do use Tool when I'm building, so I don't have a ton of mods or crazy things going on in the game. Usually when I patch, there are no issues, but the past few in particular, like the last 3, have been so detrimental to my game. I know I'm not the only one, but I didn't really explain this very well. I had mentioned a few videos ago that when the For Rent patch came out, I thought my game was so broken that I literally thought my computer was going. Like, my game currently, at random times and for random reasons, is experiencing extreme lag, extreme FPS issues. Like, all of a sudden my computer cannot handle whatever I'm working on, particularly if I go in between like live mode and build mode. If I'm trying to fix something or play test a build and I'm jumping back and forth between those two modes a lot, there are really very drastic frame rate issues that I never experienced before the For Rent patch, and it was happening so bad badly, along with like game crashing, trying to place lots down and the game freezes or crashes, endless loading screens, to an extent that I just thought my computer was broken, because I didn't see anybody talking about this on Twitter or any of the Sims forums. I tried to find answers and nobody was talking about it. This was like in the first week of the patch coming out, and I just thought my computer had totally bit the dust and was done, and I factory restored my computer because of it, thinking and hoping that that would solve the issue, that I just needed to delete some hidden files and some things that were backed up from all of the stuff that I do regarding the save and Patreon and YouTube and all sorts of stuff. I'm constantly downloading things and I have a lot going on. So as I've done in the past, if your computer gets a little slow, sometimes a factory reset doesn't hurt. And you can do this thing where you hit like keep my files, like basically factory restore my computer, but keep all of my files, my folders, my save files, all of my stuff. It really just like deletes the background stuff, and then it'll delete like any apps that you use, so I can re-download The Sims, Discord, my audio recording software, things like that. And in the process of my computer restoring itself, it ended up just deleting everything anyway. So I completely lost all of my stuff, and it was such a nightmare. It was right around Christmas time. I was devastated. It takes a lot of time to like figure out how everything was set up and kind of get back to where you were. And I was so mad at The Sims because then within a few days later, and after testing some more, come to find out it wasn't my game. It was everybody's game. It was the patch. And even more frustratingly, I thought, you know, because it's around Christmas time when all of this is happening, the holidays are going on, people's work schedules are not consistent, everyone needs time off. So presumably the Sims team and the people who work on the game and do patches and things are at home with their families or just not working so frequently. And so it's kind of a no big deal, like just wait for the patch to come out sort of thing. And then they did the most recent patch, which had nothing in it whatsoever, and I was so frustrated. And now we are into February and still no word. Game is still broken. Still very frustrated with the whole thing. I still see people on Twitter asking if it is safe to use for rent. And it's unfortunate because the other thing I didn't mention, and I haven't experienced this yet because I have not used for rent very much yet, is that people are saying if you use multiple rentals, it will corrupt your game. So I, as of right now, am not implementing any of the residential rentals into the Disney save until that is fixed, because I cannot fathom what I would do if it just suddenly corrupt. I do back a lot of things up and I keep track of everything, but it's just so much work and time, and I cannot believe that we are like several months out at this point and nothing is being done about it. It's kind of mind-blowing. I won't drag on along too much about that, but it's just some general discourse that I had been seeing amongst like my own community and some things I had been seeing on Twitter, so I wanted to talk about that for a moment. If you're experiencing anything weird and if you feel like your game has been running really, really poorly since the for rent patch, please let us know in the comments so that we know that we are not alone and we can kind of like chit chat about it. I'm always down to talk about like things that are not working well with this game after all the time that is spent and all the money and all of the things that just still don't work. It's kind of mind-blowing. Now that the build is sort of coming together here, you can see some of those key moments that I really wanted to include. One of the things was this really grand Aphrodite statue that Meg sings in front of. It is this tall, layered, multiple fountains sort of like draped around one another, and even like the portion that I've built in the film, it was on top of even more water. Like ideally, if I had more space, I would have done an even bigger round fountain that was either a pool or using the fountain tool, and then building all of the pieces that I have here on top of that, because that's really how it's sort of shown. I think there's also a waterfall in the movie. Like it's this absolutely massive piece that I knew I wasn't going to be able to get all of, but I could definitely represent by layering a lot of the romantic garden stuff, some statues, some vampires things. Some of the for rent debug items were like more statue based and had a lot of like clean white marble items as well, so I was really, really keen to use some of those like newer items in this build. In a previous video, I did mention that this was basically going to be romantic garden stuff, the build. Like this is the ultimate build for that pack. It pretty much uses every single item that that pack comes with, and you can definitely sort of see all of that around. I had at one point collected all of the items, and that's why like some of it is like kind of scattered here and there. I don't do this in all of my builds because I think as a viewer it can be a little bit frustrating to look at, but sometimes I'll make like a pile of stuff that I want to use for the build and make sure that I don't forget about. The build in my catalog is now so big that it's impossible to remember every single little piece, especially with like the debug and the live edit catalog. So I tend to make like little groups of things, or I'll make like a mental checklist in my head of all the stuff that I want to use, and then I have to remember to use it all. So with this one, there were so many things, and I just really wanted to make sure I used all the fountains, all the romantic garden stuff, all of the really pretty white marble things, and I kind of threw them all in a little corner or made like a room out of them and placed it halfway through the video to make sure I included all of those items. So I hope they're not too distracting. I don't do it very often because, like I said, I don't think people really like the chaos that causes. Some other really important things to me were to include the muses being represented in the statues and some of the sculptures that are around. They, in that scene, in the I won't say I'm in love scene, they are inside of all of the statues as Meg sort of walks around. So they're represented in several different ways and several variations of like classic Greek architecture. So I wanted to recreate a couple of those pieces. One of them that was really fun and important to me was to redo the one where all of them are standing next to one another and they're holding up the roof. And I felt like that would be a really easy bit to recreate by using some of, again, those vampire statues and making one of them a little bit shorter, as one of the characters, the muses, is a bit shorter, and that is sort of like shown in that scene as well, where she's trying to reach up and put her hands up to the roof, but she's not quite as tall as the other ones. It was a cool nod to their characters. I also did another area in reference to them where I just placed the 5 of them on different busts and different columns, especially in this like front. I guess this would be the entrance of the garden. Like, this is the main gate area where you would sort of walk up the stairs, but in the movie, this is the area furthest to the back of the garden. That is where they're primarily seen the most, like overtaking the statues and the architecture around. So I placed a lot of that sort of thing on this side. I also will be doing more with the muses. This is not their only shout out in the save file. I will be doing much more with them, actually. They're going to be receiving their own law, and I will be doing all of them as townies to add into the saves. So if you're a huge fan of the muses, don't worry, that is not going to be their only moment in the save file. There's more to come. Another one is when the scene actually begins. Meg and Hercules are strolling in this garden, and they come down a set of stairs and immediately tuck into a circular seating area. I wasn't able to completely recreate that as it is because the seating area in the film is stone, and we don't have a ton of stone seating, but we do have the romantic garden stuff like stone archways, and I tucked some round seating into there. You can see me in the video also sort of like placing around some of the wedding arches and trying to give, I guess, you guys an idea of like where you could set those and where you could play with those. Now, one of my patrons let me know that there might be a conflict where you can't really have like multiple wedding arches on the same lot, or your Sims kind of get confused during the wedding process. They don't really know where to go or where to stand. So I will test that, of course, before this goes live on the gallery and for download, and I will likely be removing those extra wedding arches other than the one that's in the main building, if that is the case. But you as the player can literally move that item wherever you want to, place it down in front of whatever object or fountain or area feels the most fitting to you for your Sim's wedding, and play with it that way. And then lastly, really important for me to do in this outdoor area, I already sort of recreated it, but it is the main long fountain in the front area of the garden. I combined that fountain. There are 2 in the film. There are many, but there were 2 that were kind of key. There's the one that is in that area already, and Hercules and Meg are kind of shown lingering around there. And then there's one later on that Meg skips across of when she's singing, and you can see that the stepping stones she walks across are like broken pillars. So I wanted to remake that entire thing, kind of combined the 2 ideas and put them both into this fountain in the front area where I had the room to like truly do it justice, although there would be more fountains if this could be done like 100% to what the film was showing. I've really been getting into the habit of trying to use Tool a lot more to like nudge everything perfectly into place, especially columns in this build and in ones that are coming in the next view for Hercules. I've been having a lot of issues with columns not sitting exactly at the right height that I want them to or where I need them to be, because when you're working with like so many different foundations and platforms and wall heights, they try to snap into place, and it's often not where I need them to be. So especially in the next build, I spend a lot of time just like making sure columns are sitting correctly and trying to get them all to sit at the right height on the right platform. There are 2 more Hercules builds coming after this one. There is one more commercial lot and then a residential, a really big residential. I have a couple of townies. Most of them will be coming pretty soon as well before I do the bigger residential. And then there is a very large townie household as well. So I'd say there's going to be probably about 4 more Hercules videos. I know it feels like a lot. I remember back when I was doing Frozen, every time I would start a new video, I would get like a little self-conscious about like being like, oh, today we're doing another Frozen video. And I was worried that people were going to get really sick of it. But I promise you guys, like all of these builds together, they feel so very cohesive. They feel really right for this world. And I'll be doing some other movies. They're not going to get as much attention as Hercules got, but it's a fan favorite of mine. Like I knew when I did Sulani that I would be doing a lot of Little Mermaid for the very same reason. My personal interests are always going to reflect at least a little bit in the save file. I will always lean into doing more builds and more things related to things that I'm really more passionate about, and I think that reflects in my builds as well. Like they come out just like, I'm not gonna say better, but like a notch above when I'm like very much invested in the movie, and Hercules is top tier for me. So I wanted to hit it all, focus on all of it, do as much as I possibly could. And this world really calls for so many things. Like there's a wedding lot that you absolutely need to do. I want to do a few residentials. There's lots of characters in different variations that can be done for Hercules. And then there are other things from other films that I'll be doing and focusing on the later half of Tortosa. But hopefully you guys don't get too sick of it. My patrons seem really happy with the Hercules builds and things so far. Let me know, of course, what you've been thinking of everything though. I've been seeing some of your comments about future predictions for the world. Some of them are very spot on, like worryingly so. I have to like look at the account and be like, are you a patron? Like telling everybody what we're doing. But some of them are just not what we're going to be doing in this world, but I don't worry, we'll be doing in a future world. I get a lot of comments of like, you should do Cinderella, you should do Pinocchio, you should do this and that. And they're not like forgotten. They're just not going into this world at this time. I will be doing especially the big ones like that. Cinderella is a huge one that I'll be focusing on in a different world. And like Pinocchio, for example, it's a Disney classic. It's not something that I personally really care for very much, and I probably won't spend too much time on, but it would be silly to ignore it, kind of like Dumbo. Dumbo, I think, ended up getting 2 lots in Willow Creek, even though I don't care for Dumbo literally at all. I think it's a terrible movie. I also get asked a lot, do I have plans for the other worlds in general? And that's kind of like a yes and no. I don't sit down and map out the world and what I actually want to put and where it's going to go until it's time to do that world. And I feel like having my patrons be a part of that process is really, really key to making everything feel balanced and really creative and fun, and a large variety of voices like contributing to it. So if I pre-plan all of the worlds and I go into it with that mindset that I already know where everything is going to go, then they don't get to help very much. And I don't think that that's fun, and I don't think it's going to make the best end product. So I don't sit down and like plan for it, but I do mentally sort of know where I want things to go, or I think I do at least. And then we get to that world and maybe a movie gets moved or cut, or we get a new world and I sort of like move some of my ideas around. So it's sort of that thing. I know that I want San Myshuno to include XYZ, but it's tentative enough that I don't like to talk about it or announce it too much, because I don't want people to get really, really set on a certain idea and then have me take it away or move it or not focus on it very much and feel disappointed. So that's kind of the reason why I don't talk about like specifically what I want to do with the future worlds, but you can get the vibes. If you base it off of like what the world is locationally, geographically, culturally, and maybe like what time period it takes place in, how modern is it, that is really like the key to planning. So that's where those movies are going to go and lean towards. Also, what is the theme of that world in regards to like what pack did it come from? So we have a cats and dogs world that we got from a cats and dogs pack, so I'll probably put a lot of those animal related movies in that world. That's the idea, generally speaking. There's also some movies that I have never seen, or I haven't like sat down and watched the more recent Disney films, so I don't know for sure where they're going, and then I don't like mentally plan for them to be anywhere, and then I get asked about them like, what is the new one that just came out, Wish? I haven't seen it. I'm waiting for it to come to Disney Plus. I don't really know like geographically where that film takes place. Someone can let me know, but I have not like mentally sort of placed that one. As well as there's another one that came straight to Disney Plus during the pandemic, and I haven't watched that one either. My husband keeps asking me to watch it with him, but there's so many things on like my mental list of I want to watch that I end up just like pushing a lot of like animated films in particular sort of like out of the way. I have a never ending like hunger to consume media. It's really, really bad actually. But I think because I spend so much time going over Disney related things, like I spend a lot of travel time, and travel destinations equal Disney for me. And I do a lot of research for Disney films, and they're really comforting to me. Like it's something that my husband and I will put on like little Disney documentaries at night when we're trying to like find stuff to fall asleep to. I obviously do a lot of Disney related things because of the save file and in my day-to-day life, that when I want to sit down and like watch something, I'm always gonna lean towards something that's just not Disney. That's at least where I'm at right now. I do try to like go out of my way to make sure I'm up to date on most everything, but I don't often go to like the movie theater to see a new Disney release. So I do wait for the most part for things to hit Disney Plus rather than actually going out to see them. I used to talk a lot about this back when I did Twitch streaming, like things that I was currently watching and getting recommendations from you guys in particular, since I feel like a lot of us are very much in the same like headspace with interest and general things that we would like. I for a long time was watching a show called Rain that I have been low-key very obsessed with and not talked about because the obsession goes like very deep. Like I'm the person who gets obsessed with the actors that are in the thing that I like, and then I follow them on all my social media, and I like very much obsess about what they're up to and what they're working on. Like I'll follow them from project to project, which I guess is sort of the idea. Like they really want you to be doing things like that. If you like history, I'm a huge history person, and this is like very light history. It is a CW show that got canceled several years ago, but I never got a chance to watch it, and it's about Queen Mary of Scots, and I was so obsessed with this show for months, and then I didn't finish it and I put it down, and I don't know why. There's something that happens that I won't spoil in the show, even though it's several years old now, and I just won't talk about it for those of you who may not have seen it yet. I don't want to ruin anything, but there's something that very pivotally happens in the show, and it completely turned me off from that point forward. It suddenly got very difficult to get through, so I went from obsessed to I want to finish it, but I could honestly care less what happens from here. And then more recently with my husband, I've been watching The Boys. That's something that I've been putting off for a really long time, but I love superheroes, and I don't know how, but The Boys fell completely under my radar. I think I didn't have Amazon Prime for a long time, so anything that fell on Amazon Prime, I probably was not going to really see, but occasionally I would get little clips of it on TikTok, and I saw some of the memes, so I became obsessed with that recently. I've been trying to get through it. I'm on season 3, trying to catch up in time for when season 4 comes out. We also binge watched Invincible on Amazon Prime, which is another animated superhero show. And then something else is like, I'm a really big movie person. Again, I used to talk about this on my Twitch a lot, but I really, really just enjoy film. And my husband does not really. Like, he's more of a casual movie watcher. Whenever I ask him, like, have you seen this? And it's like, to me, you have to see this movie kind of a deal. His answer is almost always no. And then I'm so mind blown by that. I'm like, well, we have to watch that. I can't imagine doing anything else except watching that and just like watching his expression when we see something. Now, the one that I really, really for a long time have been stuck on, and I always am asking, can we please watch this, is The Princess Diaries. And he finally gave in a couple nights ago. He was like, do you want to just sit and watch The Princess Diaries? And I could not be more excited. Like, that is like prime time for me. Like, yes, I want to watch The Princess Diaries with you. It is a classic in my eyes. And it's Disney adjacent. Well, it is Disney. And then Julie Andrews, and it's where Anne Hathaway kind of like got her start. So I was really excited to get to experience that with him. And then he liked it. He really, really did. And he asked me, can we watch the second one? Like almost immediately shortly after, so he liked it enough to like sit down and watch the other one, and the other one has Chris Pine in it. It was very exciting for me. Really good 2 days of media consumption. Is there anything really cool you guys have been watching? I love history, I love fantasy, I love when the two get combined in some sort of way. Like Rain was really big hit for me because there are history elements to it, but at the end of the day, a lot of what's depicted is done in a very exaggerated sort of way. It's not like pure fantasy, but it's definitely not true to how it actually happened. I also love superheroes. I love like anything related to magic powers, that sort of thing. So definitely leave your recommendations for me. I've seen like the classics and like normal stuff, like no one has to recommend Harry Potter and things like that, but anything you can recommend, let me know. I'll add it to my little list. Closing out the video today with the downstairs area of the interior. That is the area that I primarily designed for the bridal party or just the wedding party in general to be able to get ready. There are some makeup tables down there. There's also a dresser in case you needed to change, like maybe something doesn't work when you come over from the other lot or you want to do everything here. And then a bathroom, general things that you might need to just keep the lot super functional. There is also a bar, but it's kind of like hidden in the garden area, so you'd be able to get some drinks outside. There is a buffet table upstairs as well as a few placed throughout the garden and an area for you to be able to place down a cake if you bring a cake for your little wedding. I tried to think of pretty much everything when it comes to making sure that it was super functional, but I have never done a full wedding in The Sims before. So if there's anything you feel like I missed, please let me know down below so I can slide it in here, make sure we have everything to do a really full, fulfilling wedding. And then let me know what you thought of today's build, of course, in the comments down below. A couple more Hercules videos, Create a Sims, Townies, and a really big build coming your way very shortly here. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you all in the next one.